my as the speaker, and I don't know why. Let me just pin myself only so that's it. Then I can make sure you can see everything that I can see on my camera. So hello everybody, so I'm Claire and I'm from Delicious and Real, which is a business I launched in July. So I'm very new to the business world. If you were listening to my conversation just now to James, I'm actually a primary school teacher by trade, and I still teach 2 days a week in a local primary school. I live in Harpenden and I teach in Harpenden. So Delicious and Real, my business, is a meal planning business. And one of the main reasons for me setting it up was to do with encouraging people to cook from scratch, and also the sustainability element of it. I'm a massive fan of planning your meals, writing a shopping list, and just buying what you need, because I have a massive, problem with the amount of food waste that people produce in this country. It astounds me that people go to the supermarket without a list, they just grab things off the shelves, and then, at the end of the week, they haven't used it because they didn't know why they were buying it in the first place, and it ends up in the food waste, or even worse, it ends up in the bin. So that's one of my sort of messages from my business, is that, plan your meals and you end up with a lot less food waste, as well as ending up with a lot less plastic. Because, and I know there's links to the talk I did last time actually for Sustainable Bedford, if you're planning and you're cooking from scratch, you can actually just buy what you need. So you're not buying everything pre-packed in plastic. So it does reduce the amount of plastic and the amount of food waste. So the first thing I'm going to do is, recently I did a talk to a local Scouts group about food waste, and I did a quiz with them. I'm not going to do a quiz with you today, but I am going to share with you, if I can work out how to share my screen, I am going to share with you some of the food waste statistics for our country. So I've got to stand on tiptoes. I've had to put my camera up high so I can't really see my laptop. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm just going to open this up, and hopefully it'll work. Let me go from slideshow and play from the start. So food waste, just a few facts for you. So as you can see for this, we actually produce in the UK the highest amount of food waste in Europe. So that's something that, we all need to be mindful of, and something that is really easy to change. It just means you need to make a few little changes to what you're doing and how you cook, and also your shopping habits, and we can make an impact on that statistic, because it is shocking. 14 million tonnes, and if you look down the list at the other countries, ours is significantly higher. Sorry, it's a bit awkward with me leaning up here. I need a clicker, I haven't got a clicker. So 108 kilograms of food is wasted per person each year. So if you think about your own weight in kilograms, that's a massive amount of food that on average, each person in the UK is throwing away. And some of it we do have to throw away. I have food waste. I've got my food waste bin over there. At the end of a meal, there's stuff left on people's plates. It obviously goes into the food waste. And I do have my compost bin, but they're the kind of things which we can reuse. Lots of those peelings and lots of those, the ends we cut off things that we throw in our food compost, we can actually be reusing those as well. So I will be giving you a couple of ideas for those later on. So that food, 17.7% of the food we buy gets thrown away. So again, if you think about that from a money point of view, how much money you're spending each week on your shopping, and you're literally just throwing away 17.7% of what you buy. It's a massive proportion when you then multiply that, by the number of weeks in the year, and work out exactly how much money, so think of it as money, not as food, how much money we're throwing away each week, each month, and each year. Now, for some of the statistics, 20 million slices of bread are thrown away every year in the UK. Now, bread is one of the things, we always have bread, love eating bread. We always have bread in the bread bin. but I'm very conscious of not throwing it away. So I have lots and lots of different uses for my leftover bread. So if I have a loaf in there and I know it's been in there a few days and I can see it's not going to last much longer, I will put the slices of bread in my freezer. And then once I've got a few slices in there, I will get them out, I'll put them in my food blender and I just blitz it into breadcrumbs. And then I put it back in the freezer in a bag. And when I'm cooking, you know, I cook quite a few breaded dishes. My children love things. If they've got breadcrumbs on, children tend to like them even more. And actually, I do as well. So if I'm making, you know, fish fingers, or if I'm making chicken goujons or a pork schnitzel, anything like that, I've always got a bag of breadcrumbs in the freezer, which I can just pull out. So that's one use for my leftover bread. Another use, which I'm going to show you today actually, is I'm going to show you how you can make a really nice topping which can go on top of, you know, pasta dishes, or today I'm going to show you how you can put it on top of a cauliflower cheese. So bread doesn't have to be wasted. Just be mindful of how long it's been in your bread bin. And also, you know, in our family, we tend to, my son had a thing when he was little where he had to have a different breakfast every day of the week. And he wouldn't get out of bed until I told him what was for breakfast. And so we've got in the habit in our house of having something different every day for breakfast. So, you know, Mondays we have croissants, and Tuesday we have yogurt, and Thursday, which is today, is our toast day. So we have egg on toast today. My daughter has avocado and mushrooms, my son has egg. So we all have something with toast. Now, this means we actually don't get through a whole loaf of bread in our house in a week, even though there's 4 of us, because obviously we have this, you know, silly range of breakfasts that are going on. So I never put a full loaf in my bread bin. As soon as I buy a loaf of bread, I halve it and I put half in the freezer and half in the bread bin. And then when that half's gone, I get out the other one, because, you know, I can't think of anything worse than having to throw away half a loaf of bread because it's gone mouldy in the bread bin. And also, there's nothing more disappointing than fancying a slice of toast, opening the bread bin, and your slice of bread is covered in mould. So with bread, make the freezer your friend. Honestly, it will make a massive difference, and you can repurpose it, reuse it. Okay, my next one, bananas. We throw away 900,000 bananas every day in the UK. Now, I am guilty of looking at bananas like the bananas in this picture and not wanting to eat them. I, you know, put my hands up to that. For me, a banana has to be just turning from green to yellow if I'm going to eat it. So I tend to only eat them on the day of purchase, which is why I tend to buy them in really small quantities. But if I do buy a bunch of bananas and they end up looking like that, I don't throw them away. I chop them up, put them in a freezer bag and pop them in the freezer. And then I can use them in smoothies, or I can use them, you know, in lockdown, that big trend of lockdown making banana bread. I can use them in baking as well. And the skins, here's a good top tip for you. You don't need to throw the skins away straight away either, because if you put the skins into water and soak them in water, it infuses the water and it makes it potassium rich, because obviously bananas are full of potassium, and your house plants or your garden plants will absolutely love the treat. So soak your banana skins in water before you put them in your compost, and then you can give your plants a treat and hopefully bring a bit of nature, with it being, you know, it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and it's all about nature. So you can bring that nature back to life, all those house plants that might be looking a little bit sad. Okay, so my final one is, and this again, if as a planet we stopped wasting food, we would eliminate 8% of our greenhouse emissions. So just by being mindful about our food waste, we can all have a positive impact on the planet. And the fact that, you know, we can eliminate 8% of our greenhouse emissions just by stopping wasting food. And actually, that's an easy change to make. You know, that's not a difficult change. It doesn't impact our lives significantly. You know, we've done it in our house, and, you know, as I said, I do have food waste. We do throw things away, but I am so much more mindful of how I use my food. And also I am much more mindful of how I use my freezer. My freezer is my best friend. And if I have any leftovers from any meal, it goes in a Tupperware pot and it goes in the freezer. And then it comes out for lunches. You know, my children will often take leftovers to school for their packed lunches in those, I've got those little mini thermos flasks and I just heat it through, pop it in the thermos flask and they'll have it for lunch. I'll take it to lunch on the days when I'm going into work. So I never ever throw anything like that away. Right, now over to the cooking side. So let me just stop sharing my screen. So I think I just click up here to stop share and then I can get off of my tiptoes. Let me make this full screen again so I can check you can see what you're seeing. So the first thing I'm going to cook today or show you how to cook is a vegetable stock. But this vegetable stock is different because this vegetable stock is made from all of your peelings. So all of those leftover parts of vegetables that you normally just throw into your food waste, you can actually save. I just have a bag in my freezer, and each time I peel some carrots or some potatoes or an onion, I've got some bits of kale stalks and leek stalks in there, and I think I've got some asparagus stalks from today's lunch. So every time I prepare vegetables, instead of putting my peelings in my food waste bin, I put them in a bag like this in the freezer. And then every now and then I get them out and I make this stock, and it is really, really easy to make. So I'm going to show you how to make that now. So we're going to start off with an onion. And the great thing about this is you don't need to peel it. We're literally just going to cut the onion in half and we're going to pop it in a large saucepan, skin and all, so that can go in. I've then got 4 garlic cloves, and again, you don't need to faff around with peeling them, just going to squash them with the back of a knife. So some of these are a bit big, they're a bit hard to squash. So they're going to go in the pan as well, so in they go. I've then got, I'm conscious of coming off the camera, I hope it's long. I've then got a teaspoon of black pepper corns. They're going to go in. I'm going to pop in some cloves, just 4 or 5 cloves. I've then got bay leaf. So that's going in. And then I'm just going to put in all of my vegetable peelings. So in they go as well. I just think that's quite a big bag. This bag is only probably from, I don't know, 3 weeks. So that would all have ended up, and I know it would have been composted. We're very good here in Harpenden in that we do have our food waste collected. So it does end up being composted, but it does make me feel so much better that I am giving it another use before it ends up going in my compost. Because obviously these vegetables will end up going in the compost, but there's still so much goodness in them because the skin is the part which holds a lot of the vitamins. So by using it in this stock, we're making sure we get the best out of all of those fantastic veggies and getting all of that, those really good vitamins and minerals. So they are in there. It's still a little bit frozen, but that's fine. And all I'm going to do now with the amount of water is I'm just going to fill it so the water just covers the vegetables. So I'm just going to pop over to my tap and run in my water. I will be back in a second. I can't get my camera to see the whole of my chicken. So I've just filled it to just above the vegetables, and I'm going to pop it on a high heat. And I want it to come to the boil. And then once it's come to the boil, I'm going to reduce the heat, put the lid on. I'm just going to leave it to simmer for about an hour. And obviously I'm not going to make you watch it simmering and stand here talking to you for the whole hour about it. You can also, if you wanted to, you could put in, I've actually got one in the freezer now. I could have put it in today, but I've got a chicken carcass. So you could throw in a chicken carcass or any, bones from any roasts you've had. So save those as well. I've got 2 dogs actually, and one of them is a little puppy. And, my husband says I'm a bit obsessed with the dogs, and I cook for them more than I cook for my family, which is a complete lie because I cook all the time. But I think he's feeling a bit pushed out by the puppy. And so the other day we had lamb. We had people round for a barbecue and I did lamb, and I had to take the bone out of the lamb. And so I used the lamb and I made a bone broth for the dogs. So again, just put the bone in there with some carrots and some water. I didn't add any of the herbs or anything for the dogs. And I just boiled it down and I made a bone broth for them. So any bones, you know, any vegetables, any peelings, just pop them in a pan. Now, once this is done, so after the hour's up, all you need to do is you just strain it. So I just strain it through my sieve. I use a potato masher to push through the vegetables to make sure you get all of the goodness out. You squeeze out every last bit of goodness. And then storing it, I mean, I'm not going to use all of that in a week. I mean, it would stay in your fridge for a week, but I'm not going to use all of that. So I tend to pour it into an ice cube tray, pop the ice cube tray in the freezer, and then once it's frozen, I pop out the ice cubes, pop them in a bag, and then when I need vegetable stock for something, I can just pull out, you know, a handful of the ice cubes and I've got my homemade vegetable stock. And actually what I forgot to say, I haven't seasoned this yet, because once it's finished, I will add the seasoning at the end. So I'll taste it and I will add, you know, any salt if I need to, or any pepper at the very end. But you know, at the minute, I have no idea how much salt it needs. Do you know, I am gonna, I did say at the beginning that I always forget something. I am gonna add a little bit of oil to it, which I forgot, and a bay leaf. See, I always forget something. This is the thing. I get carried away. It's the teacher in me. I like talking to people and then I lose track of what I was saying. So I'm just gonna pop my bay leaf in and I'm just gonna put a drizzle of oil in. I use cold pressed rapeseed oil. This is my favourite oil to use. I cook with this all the time. You can also make salad dressings with it. It's quite a mellow flavour. I find it better for cooking with than olive oil because number one, it's cheaper than olive oil. And secondly, it's not as strong in flavour. And it also has a lower burn point. With olive oil, it's much, much easier to burn things. If you put olive oil in your pan, you'll find you might burn your onions a lot quicker than if you use an oil like rapeseed oil. It's a little bit of an extra tip for you there. So I am going to just leave that there. And as I said, once it starts boiling, which might take a while because some of my vegetable peelings are still frozen, I will turn it down, I'll pop my lid on, and I will leave it to simmer. So there's my first use for all those bits of vegetables that we tend to just throw away. All of our peelings, pop them in a pan, make yourself a vegetable stock. Right, my second top tip for the day for throwing away the parts or using the parts that others throw away is cauliflower. Now, cauliflower has had a massive resurgence in the last couple of years. You see it on, you know, most restaurant menus now. They will have a cauliflower dish, whether it's a roasted cauliflower or cauliflower steaks. There's cauliflower everywhere. It's really, really come back on trend. It's no longer that, you know, heavily boiled vegetable of, you know, my childhood, you know, school dinners, that horrible, you know, water-logged white or even grey piece of, you know, mush on the side of your plate. It has been revolutionized into this fantastic vegetable that can take a lot of flavor. Now, my favorite cauliflower dish is my ultimate comfort food dish is a cauliflower cheese. So I'm going to show you today how you can use the leaves from your cauliflower. Again, this is the part that most people throw away. When you read a recipe, it says on it, doesn't it? So, you know, cut off the florets. It doesn't tell you what to do with the leaves. And actually, there are quite a few uses for them. One of the uses, which I am going to show you, is to make a crunchy topping that can go on top of your cauliflower cheese, or it can go on top of a pasta dish or any other dish you want to. Another use, these are like, you know, treat them like other leaves, like cabbage leaves. We eat those, so you can just roast them with some oil and some seasoning. They make a fantastic vegetable on their own to go on the side of your plate. You can shred them and throw them in your stir fry. So treat them like you would any other green leaf. Treat them like you would, you know, your cabbage leaves, your cavolo nero, your kale. Treat them in the same way and don't throw them away because lots of goodness in them, lots of flavour in them. Okay, my topping for my cauliflower cheese. Now I actually made my cauliflower cheese earlier, so I've got my cauliflower cheese here, which I'm very much looking forward to eating later on. For this topping, all you need are your cauliflower leaves, and then you need some bread. Now for this, you could use some of that bread which you've got in the freezer. So if you've got some slices of bread in the freezer that you threw in there before they went bad, just bring them out and defrost them, because you can use them to make this topping. That's another really good use for them. So all I'm going to do is, I've got my blender, so it might get, or my food mixer, it might get a little bit noisy. I'm just going to break the bread up and pop it in my, I've got about 100 grams of bread here. I'm going to pop it in my mixer. I'm just going to whiz it to breadcrumbs. And then I'm just going to add my leaves from my cauliflower. I'm just going to pop those in. And there you go. It's also a really good way, if you've got children, of getting your children to eat vegetables, because they actually don't notice that there's cauliflower in there. My son would probably say he doesn't like cauliflower, but if he ate this crunchy topping, he would. I did contemplate doing this part before I went on the Zoom, but then I thought there's no point, so I can't really show you it, and it is all meant to be a demonstration, so I do apologise for the noise. I need a silent food mixer. So I've got my breadcrumbs in there, I've got my cauliflower leaves in there. I'm now just going to add a clove of garlic, and then I'm going to add a drizzle of oil. Again, it's up to you which oil you use, but I am going to use my rapeseed oil, and just throw the lid off. So just a drizzle of that in there, and I'm going to give it one last whiz. And there we have it. A topping made from your cauliflower leaves and some old stale bread that can just go on top of your cauliflower cheese. And then later on, I'll just pop it in the oven and bake it. And cauliflower cheese can look a little bit, although it's not proper beige food, because it is cauliflower and it is good for you, it does need a little bit of colour. So look at that, it completely changes a cauliflower cheese, and then you can pop it in the oven and that will crisp up nicely. If I was putting it on top, if I'd already made my cauliflower cheese and it was hot and I wanted to put this on top of it and serve it straight away, and I didn't want to put it back in the oven, you could just pan fry this. So you could just fry it off on the hob. If you wanted to add some meat to it, you could add some chorizo, that would be lovely, or some bacon. But a really, really simple way of using those leaves that normally and traditionally we've been taught just end up in the food waste. So, vegetable peelings, cauliflower leaves. I also put the cauliflower stalk in my cauliflower cheese as well. I don't just use the florets, I use the stalk as well. Just chop it up and throw it in with the cauliflower when I cooked it. So again, those parts that we've traditionally been shown, if you watch chefs on TV, they quite often just throw those parts in the bin. We don't need to throw them in the bin. They taste the same as the rest of it. They've got just as much goodness in. And I just think we need to educate ourselves and change the way we do things slightly, and question why we do it. Why do I throw that part away? Why can't I eat the cauliflower leaves? How are they different to the leaves on a cabbage? They're not. So just treat them in the same way. Right, my final one. So my final one I'm going to show you is, and I know I've whizzed through it, I feel like I've spoken really quickly and I'm really sorry for that. My final one is this. So the stalk of broccoli. This one, doesn't look very attractive when you've cut the florets off, and it's not much. It could just go in the food waste. It could go in your bag of frozen vegetables to go in your stock, but I'm going to show you some other ways that you can use it. Now, I'm not a massive fan of kitchen gadgets. I've got a few that I really like, but I don't have lots and lots of them. I don't like clutter. I don't like things everywhere. But I do have a couple that I'm going to show you now that are really good for transforming vegetables like this. And my first one, and these were really popular a few years ago, is a Spiralizer. Now this is a Lakeland Spiralizer, and I like it because it packs down, it all folds down into the little box at the bottom. So it's really easy to store in the cupboard. And a Spiralizer just gives you ribbons, and you can change the size of them. There's different blades that go on it. It gives you ribbons of the vegetable. Now, I bought this a few years ago when my children were a little bit younger, and I discovered that my children who would not eat courgette, they didn't like courgette, they wouldn't even contemplate eating it, would eat it if I spiralized it, because I don't know why, it just looked fun. They enjoyed, pulling out the spiralized ribbons out of their dinners and seeing who had the longest one. And so a spiralizer is really, really good for getting children to eat vegetables that they wouldn't normally eat. And also it just gives a bit of variety. It makes a vegetable that you might be a bit bored of, you always cook it in the same way, just makes it a bit more interesting. So I'm going to show you how you can spiralize your stalk of your broccoli. So with my spiralizer, you just push it in like that, and then see if you can see. You just turn the handle, and it is quite full, and it literally, if I just grab a bit off, really simply, it produces these fantastic spiralized sort of ribbons of vegetable. And with your broccoli stalk, you can throw these in a salad, give your green salad a little bit of extra flavour, give it a little bit of texture. You can serve it through pasta. And I often do that with courgette as well. I will spiralize it up, and if I'm making spaghetti, I'll throw some of this in as well, because it means that you can put in less spaghetti, so you're reducing the amount of carbohydrates you're eating, and it also means you're increasing the amount of vegetables you're eating. So spiralize your broccoli stalks and add them to salads. You can add them to stir fries, you can add them to anything. Fantastic way of using that stalk that we normally throw away. Okay, my other way, I haven't spiralized it all, so I'm going to show you another way with this stalk. I'm just going to move this out of the way. My other kitchen gadget, which actually I only bought recently, was one of these. So it's a little Mandoline Slicer, and it slices things really, really thin. So you do have to be careful of your fingers on this one, and you can change. This is just an OXO one. This one was less than £10 off of Amazon, so it's not expensive. And again, it's small, so it just goes in a drawer. It stores away easily. I know you can get bigger ones, but I didn't want something that took up loads of space in my kitchen. And again, you can take your broccoli stalk. Got to be careful with my fingers. I want to cut my fingers on the Zoom. And you just run it across the blade, and it gives you. And you can change the thickness, little thin slices of your broccoli, and they can be, again, throw them in a stir fry, throw them in a pasta dish. You could even chop them into batons, and then you could use them with a dip. You could make some kind of dip, and you could have these with your carrot sticks. You could have broccoli sticks as well. So it's just a case of being more mindful. And just before you throw something out, just thinking, is there another way that I can use it? Can I do something with this? Give it, another job to do before I throw it out. So I think that was everything I was going to say. I'm not sure if there are any questions in the chat. So if I just ask Corey if anyone's asked any questions, because there may well have been things that I missed out. I did have all my notes written up, and I haven't looked at them once, which I suppose is a good thing. But I'm looking at my watch, it's 22, so it's been about 40 minutes. So Corey, are there any questions that does anybody have any questions that they want to put in the chat now about anything I've said or anything else to do with food waste?
There was one question. This is from Graham. Graham asks, is it always better to open any packaging from foods such as veg or put some of them in water? I struggle with kale. It comes fresh in our odd box, then wilts loads if I don't use it the same day.
Do you know what? That's a really good question. There are things you can do with that. If you open the bag, so things like spinach, I had this the other day, my spinach started sweating in the bag. If you open the bag and just put some kitchen roll in it, that can help absorb it, absorb any extra moisture in there. You can also, if you just try plunging vegetables into ice cold water before you cook them, that can also give them a new lease of life. Vegetables like kale, because they are, you know, if you're lucky enough to get it, it depends how you've got it, because sometimes kale comes and it's already chopped, but if you get it and it's still whole and you've still got the stalks with the leaves on, you can stand vegetables like that in water. And I will often do that with herbs and things. When I get herbs, I'll stand them in a glass of water, you know, either on my windowsill, or sometimes I put them in the fridge as well. So there are ways that we can store our fruits and vegetables that definitely extend the lifespan of them. And I think removing them from plastic will make a difference in it. Also, if you just put that piece of kitchen roll in with them, that will help as well, because they need to be able to breathe. Is that the only question?
Does anyone else have any more questions? Do feel free to unmute yourself.
Just looking to see if I had anything else on there that I missed out. I think I spoke about most things that I wanted to. And I showed you most things I wanted to. And as I said, because my stock, because my vegetables were still frozen, it still actually hasn't come to a boil yet. So I will leave that while I'm out walking the dog. I will leave that simmering for an hour this afternoon, and then I'll just strain it. And as I said, I'm just going to put it in ice cube trays. You could also, if you wanted to, you could measure it out in, quite often recipes call for set amounts, like they, you know, 500 ml or 200 ml. So you could measure it out in milliliters, and then if you've got some little plastic bags, some freezer bags, you could pour it into those, and then if you make it really flat, they will then go in your freezer, so you can actually pile them up and write the amount on them. So that's another way of storing them, but it depends, you know, how much freezer space you have as to, you know, how you store it. You might want to store them in, you know, glass jars. If you've got a big, you know, I've got a big chest freezer in the basement, so you might want to store them, you know, in jars in there. It's totally up to you, but it is, you know, it actually makes you feel good. As a Mental Health Awareness Week, it makes you feel good when you're making something and it asks for a vegetable stock cube, and you're like, I don't need to use a vegetable stock cube today. I've got my own homemade vegetable stock. And think how much goodness is going to be in that vegetable stock, as opposed to a stock that's just made with a stock cube. You know, there's not all the vitamins and the minerals and all the goodness that's come from all those peelings when you've got your tiny little stock cube that you've got out of a box. So, you know, it's win-win on, you know, both fronts, on a health point of view and from a food waste point of view. Anything else, Corey?
No, there's no other questions. So I think we wrap up.
Yep, happy with that. And if anybody wants any of the recipes or anything, if they put a message or contact Corey, I'm happy to, you know, write out the recipes and send them to you. I'm happy to do. I've got the cauliflower cheese recipe if anybody wants it, and obviously the topping recipe and the vegetable stock recipe. And also, if people want, I also have some images which has the ideas for the using the cauliflower stalks and using the broccoli stalks. So I have got things which I can share with people if they want them. Let me just unpin myself now so I can see.
Thank you, Claire. That was really good.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I spoke a little bit quickly though. I felt like I was going to go, but I never know how long these things are going to last. That's the problem. It's really hard to judge how long it lasts. I'm used to obviously being in a classroom, and then you've got the interaction with the children. So you plan something you think is going to last for half an hour, and with all the children talking and asking questions, it always goes on for longer. So I suppose I sort of underestimated not having that interaction with people. But I hope it was useful, and I hope people have, you know, got a few more ideas about how to, you know, love those parts of vegetables that we normally throw in the bin.
Yeah, that's
Brilliant.
good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Just before we go, on Saturday, we've got 2 events happening, one on home composting and one on the climate crisis. Registration closes tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Also, we've got one on Sunday, which is also a food waste one. So you can book in 2 ways. You can head to Eventbrite by searching for Sustainable Bedford, or even the event title you were looking for. Also, you can head to our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. On Instagram, it will have a link in our bio. If you've got any questions or feedback, please do email me, sustainablebedford@gmail.com. As mentioned previously, all links and stuff will be sent to you up to a week in advance, like next week probably. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Brilliant. Take care.
Corey, quickly, can we watch ones that we miss on that site as well?
So all talks are being recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So these are expected to be uploaded next week. Yesterday's talk is available for you to watch currently, and I'm working on uploading the rest.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No worries.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.